All right, let's talk about one of the most wild, most explosive, and honestly most misunderstood events in the entire Bible, the day of Pentecost. It's a story that's just jam-packed with symbolism, and today we're going to peel back the layers and get to its incredibly deep meaning.
I mean, just try to imagine you're there for a second. The scene is pure chaos. You hear a sound like a hurricane ripping through a house. You see what looks like little flames dancing over everyone's heads. And then, suddenly, people are speaking in languages they've never, ever learned. It's strange. It's almost unbelievable. So what on earth was actually going on?
To get to the bottom of it, we've got to go on a bit of a journey. First, we'll look at the spectacle itself. Then we're going to zoom out and see how it all connects to a king's victory, how it completely reverses one of Israel's most important stories, how it creates a totally new kind of community, and even how it starts to heal one of humanity's oldest wounds. So, let's jump in.
Okay, so picture this. We're in Jerusalem, and the city is absolutely buzzing for a major festival. A crowd starts to gather, drawn in by this crazy sound, and they are just bewildered. Why? Because they're hearing these guys, these uneducated Galileans, speaking in their own native languages. You've got Parthians, Medes, Elamites, people from all over the known world, and each one is hearing the great things of God in their mother tongue. The reaction is total confusion. And of course, you've got the cynics in the back mocking them. They're just drunk.
But then the Apostle Peter stands up, and he just cuts right through all the noise. He's like, whoa, you've got this all wrong. It's 9 a.m. Nobody's drunk. This isn't wine. This is the work of God. And right there, Peter gives us the very first key to understanding this whole thing. What they're seeing and hearing is a direct result of who Jesus is and what he has just done.
So what's his argument? Well, Peter makes this absolutely stunning claim. He says all this chaos, all this sound and fire and language, it's all tangible proof that Jesus of Nazareth, the man they crucified just 50 days ago, is not dead. In fact, he's been raised from the grave and is ascended to the very throne of heaven.
To prove his point, he reaches back 1,000 years into the scriptures, to a song written by King David. And Peter's logic here is just razor sharp. He says, look, we all know David died. He was buried. His tomb is right over there. He saw corruption. So who was he talking about in this psalm? He was talking about his great descendant, the Messiah, who was destined to conquer death itself. This completely reframed Jesus' resurrection. It wasn't some random shocking event. It was a promise kept.
Then Peter pulls out his trump card, Psalm 110. Now get this is the single most quoted Old Testament verse in the entire New Testament. He poses a riddle. If the Messiah is David's son, why does David call him my Lord? The answer for Peter is crystal clear. David was looking into the future, seeing a king so great that even he, the greatest king of Israel, would call him Lord. And that king is Jesus, who's now ruling from heaven.
So here's the bottom line. The Holy Spirit being poured out, this spectacular, audible, visible event, is the very first royal act of the newly crowned King Jesus. It's the proof, it's the evidence that he is alive, that he is in charge, and that he is now sending the gift he promised right from his throne. But why this particular gift? And why on this particular day? To really get that, we have to zoom out even further. Because you see, the Feast of Pentecost wasn't a new holiday. It had a long, powerful history tied to another mountain, another fire, and another moment that defined the entire nation of Israel. For centuries, Jewish people celebrated Pentecost exactly 50 days after Passover. And what were they celebrating? They were remembering the day God descended on Mount Sinai in fire and smoke and gave Moses the 10 Commandments, the law, carved on stone tablets. So the timing of this new event? Yeah, it is absolutely 100% intentional. And when you put these two events side by side, the contrast is just mind-blowing. At Sinai, God gave an external law written on stone. At Pentecost, he gives his own Spirit to write his ways on our hearts. At Sinai, the people were terrified. They were told to keep their distance from God. At Pentecost, God's very presence comes to live inside his people. And here's the most stunning parallel of all. At the foot of Mount Sinai, 3,000 people were killed because of their rebellion. But on the day of Pentecost, 3,000 people are saved. It's a profound reversal. It's the start of a whole new covenant.
Now, this new covenant doesn't just change our relationship with God. It creates a totally new kind of community. Pentecost isn't just about a bunch of individuals having a spiritual experience. It's about God forming a new people, a people who collectively embody the 3 most important roles in all of ancient Israel: king, priest, and prophet.
Now check this out. This is so cool. When Saul, Israel's very first king, was anointed, he was given 3 signs to confirm it. He was told about some donkeys, he received bread and wine from some men, and then the Spirit of God came on him and he began to prophesy. Sound familiar? Jesus gives his disciples strikingly similar signs. They find a donkey for his triumphal entry, he shares bread and wine with them with the Last Supper, and then, at Pentecost, the Spirit comes on them and they prophesy. A new kind of kingdom is being inaugurated.
And what about the priests? Well, the priestly imagery is just everywhere. Those tongues of fire would have immediately reminded people of the ever-burning fire on the temple altar. This new community is called a lampstand, a key piece of temple furniture, meant to shine light in a dark world. The people themselves become living altars, offering their whole lives to God. Basically, the community itself becomes the new temple, the place on earth where God's presence dwells.
And finally, we have the role of the prophet. And, this fulfills a deep, ancient longing. It goes all the way back to Moses himself, who once wished that God's Spirit wasn't just reserved for a few special leaders, but was for everybody.
And that's the exact prophecy from the prophet Joel that Peter stands up and quotes on the day of Pentecost. He's essentially shouting to the crowd, hey, that ancient dream of Moses, that old promise from Joel, it's happening. Right now, it's real. God is creating a prophetic people where everyone, sons, daughters, young and old, has direct access to him through his Spirit.
Okay, now we need to zoom out one last time, to the widest possible angle. Because this event doesn't just reshape Israel's story. It reaches all the way back to one of the very first stories in the book of Genesis, to start healing a wound at the very heart of the human family.
I'm talking, of course, about the Tower of Babel. Remember that story? All of humanity spoke one language. They got together to build a city and a massive tower, basically to make a name for themselves and to reach heaven on their own terms. And we all know how that ended. Their pride led to God confusing their language, which led to misunderstanding, division, and humanity being scattered all over the earth.
Pentecost is the brilliant, beautiful reversal of Babel. At Babel, one language was shattered into many, creating division. At Pentecost, many languages are brought together to hear one single message, creating unity. At Babel, humanity was scattered in judgment. At Pentecost, the nations begin to be gathered together in blessing. The ancient curse of division is finally beginning to be undone.
It's really nothing less than a moment of new creation. I mean, think about it. The same way God breathed the breath of life into the first human, Adam, at the very beginning, here at Pentecost, God breathes his Spirit, his life-giving wind, into a new humanity. He's launching a restored human project powered by his very own presence. So when you put all these incredible pieces together, you start to see that Pentecost is so much more than just a strange miracle with some weird special effects. It's this dense, multi-layered, epic event that acts as a blueprint for everything that comes after it.
I mean, just think about it. This one day proves Jesus' victory over death. It gives birth to the new covenant. It inaugurates a new royal priesthood. It begins to heal the division of Babel. And it marks the dawn of God's new creation. It's all right there. This single day defines the identity and the mission of the church from that moment on.
So that leaves us with a final thought to really chew on. As you read the rest of the New Testament and learn about the church, about its purpose, its mission, its character, how can you trace those ideas back to what happened on that single, explosive, world-changing day of Pentecost? Because once you see the connections, you'll find them everywhere.